All right, let's dive in. Today we're taking a deep look at one of Teyvat's most imposing figures, the Raiden Shogun of Inazuma. Now, on the surface, she's an eternal, unchanging god. But her story, it's so much more complex and honestly, way more human than you'd think.
To her people, she's not just a leader. She's a fact of life, an absolute. But what if I told you that behind that unblinking gaze and that silent throne, there's a story of incredible loss, a desperate gamble against time itself? We're going to pull back the curtain and find out who the immortal sovereign really is.
So first things first, let's get the official story straight. The one she's been carefully crafting for centuries. The Raiden Shogun is the bedrock of faith in Inazuma. She's promised her people an eternal paradise, a nation basically frozen at its absolute peak, safe from the so-called erosion of progress and the pain that comes with it.
And you know, this isn't just some catchy slogan. It's a creed. It is woven into the very fabric of their society. You've got soldiers shouting it, people whispering it in their prayers. This one line, it says everything about the deep, unwavering faith that people have in their God and her vision for a perfect, unchanging world.
I mean, her legend is literally carved into the landscape. Kids grow up hearing bedtime stories about her slain ancient gods. You can literally go and see Musojin Gorge, this giant chasm she supposedly split with a single swing of her sword. So she's not just a ruler, she's seen as the guarantor of reality itself, a being that embodies the very idea of forever.
Okay, but this is where the story takes a massive turn, and the truth gets way more interesting. The being that rules Inazuma, the one sitting on the throne and handing down decrees, she's not the real god. And that's the central secret here. The Shogun isn't one person, she's two.
And here it is, the big reveal. You've got A. She's the actual god, the Archon, who has hidden her consciousness away from the physical world. And then you've got the Shogun, a completely flawless automaton that A built to rule in her place, a puppet designed to execute her will for all time, free from a decaying body and, most importantly, free from a changing mind.
And what's so wild is just how different they are. The Shogun puppet is a machine, right? It's cold, it's logical, it can't think for itself, and it even talks with this super rigid formality. A, on the other hand, she's driven by this deep-seated fear of loss, she's kind of curious about the world, and, get this, she has a major sweet tooth. One is a program, the other is a person.
So you've got to ask yourself, why? Why would a god abandon her own body and trust a machine to run her nation? Well, to figure that out, we have to rewind about 500 years, to the string of tragedies that basically forged her obsession with stopping time in its tracks.
See, before she was the sole ruler, E was what's known as a Kagamusha, a body double, a warrior who stayed in the shadows. It was her twin sister Makoto who was the real Archon, the public face of the nation. Makoto handled the politics, the diplomacy, and E was the sword. They were two halves of a single whole.
Now, Makoto's whole philosophy was the exact opposite of what E would later embrace. She believed that the most beautiful moments are the ones that don't last, that their fleeting nature is what makes them so precious. And this just perfectly sets up the tragic irony of what's about to happen. This very idea would become a source of unbearable pain for E.
And then a cataclysm hit. And in its wake, E lost everyone. The friends she'd shared these quiet, peaceful moments with, gone, one by one. And then came the final, soul-crushing blow. Her sister, Makoto, died, passing her divine authority to E. In an instant, every single fleeting moment she ever cherished became a source of pure agony. The idea of erosion suddenly felt terrifyingly real.
And this became E's grim, ironclad conclusion about how the universe works. Time, progress, change. To her, these weren't just neutral forces anymore. They were active, hateful things that only cause suffering. She looked at the future and all she could see was an endless nightmare of loss. And she decided right then and there to stop it.
Her answer to this existential dread was a concept she called eternity, a state of perfect, unchanging stillness. But to get there, she needed a radical, almost desperate plan, one whose flaws would end up nearly tearing her nation to pieces.
Her plan unfolded in a few key steps. First, she had to beat her own mortality, so she dug into these ancient, forbidden techniques for creating artificial life. After who knows how long and countless failed attempts, she finally did it. She built a perfect, immortal vessel to be the forever defender of Inazuma.
In that final moment, right as she was about to make the switch, the brand new automaton asked her if she had any regrets about this irreversible act. And E's response was just absolute. She said, "Your existence is my answer." This puppet, this perfect machine, was her conviction, made real. And with that, she transferred her consciousness and began her endless meditation, a god in self-imposed exile.
But well, the plan was deeply, catastrophically flawed. By locking herself away, E got completely detached from the very people she was trying to protect. The puppet, stuck with its rigid programming, couldn't adapt, it couldn't reason. And this created a power vacuum that let outside forces manipulate it, which led directly to the oppressive Vision Hunt Decree, a policy that caused so much suffering, all in the name of an eternity that was supposed to bring peace.
That suffering, though, it didn't just fade into nothing. The will of her people, their collective desire for change, it eventually reached I in her silent little realm. It forced her to finally confront the disastrous results of her grief-fueled plan and to face the ultimate challenge, a battle against her own perfect, unchanging past.
And that conflict, it became literal. The puppet, the flawless, perfect embodiment of her original, unyielding idea, confronted I. From its perfectly logical point of view, I's doubt, her wavering heart, was now a threat to eternity. The creation basically declared its creator obsolete.
And then the puppet delivers the most devastating blow, the most pointed question of all. It accuses EI of falling victim to the very force she built it to defeat: erosion. This moment right here is the philosophical crisis of her entire life. Is her change of heart a sign of decay, a weakening of her will, or is it growth?
In the end, it was her connection to her people that won out. She saw their ambition, their struggle, the relentless will to move forward, even with the risk of loss, and she finally got it. Her pursuit of a static world, a world born from her own fear, had become a prison. Her definition of eternity had to change.
And this, of course, led to a huge philosophical shift. EA started to see human ambition not just as a recipe for loss, but as this brilliant, messy, powerful driver of achievement. She got rid of the oppressive decrees and stepped out of her isolation, committing to actually guiding her nation forward into a future instead of holding it captive in the past.
So, we end up here. The Raiden Shogun story is this incredible journey from a grief-stricken god who was terrified of time to a ruler who finally understands that real eternity isn't about stopping the clock. It's about enduring through change. Which leaves us with the big question, right? What does the future look like for a nation led by a god who has finally, after 500 years, decided to embrace the present? Well, that story is still being written.